Another indication of stratification in America today is the income gap. The income gap between high income and low income individuals has increased dramatically over the last 30 years. I would like for you to watch What is Income Inequality Gap in 60 seconds, and then take some notes reflecting on this. Another indicator of stratification in America is poverty. Poverty has an official government definition, but there are also less official categories such as the working poor and non-working poor, sometimes called the underclass. Often we think of the working poor or just people who are poor as people with little skills or people who are just lazy. However, there's many people in our country who are working 2 and 3 jobs at minimum wage without benefits. And when you live like this or have lack of resources or opportunities, it's very easy to fall back to the poverty line. One illness, one accident, one paycheck missing, and you have to start all over at the bottom. To understand this more, I'd like for you to play the game Spent. It is part of an extra credit assignment. So if you go to Assessments, then Dropbox, you'll see the game Play Spent, and also the instructions for how to play that game. Another major change in the workforce that has blurred the lines between the middle and working classes is the rise of the low-wage service sector, which is composed of ostensibly white-collar jobs that earn working-class wages. These unofficial categories don't represent stable, homogeneous groups because people at this end of the socioeconomic spectrum tend to shift in and out of poverty over the course of their lives. And jobs that may have this shift happen more so than others is the service sector. They are white-collar jobs but do not pay a living wage. Now we're going to talk about global inequality. Taking a broad view of history, it is clear that global inequality has increased dramatically in the past 500 years. However, by some measures, there has been a noticeable decrease of income inequality in the past 20 to 30 years. One key to these conclusions is whether you look at inequality within different countries or between countries. Many scholars have examined the question of why Europe developed first and why many former colonies have struggled to improve social and economic conditions for their populations. Theories range from geographic differences to the importance of social institutions to the types of relationships different colonial powers had with their colonies. So I'd like for you to watch the video about wealth and inequality. What strategies would you propose to correct for income inequality in the United States and also around the globe? Jeffrey Sachs describes how educating young women is key to Africa going through demographic transition. I would like for you to watch this video. It's part of the videos available through your book. One question I'd like for you to think about is how poverty in the United States is different than global poverty. What does it mean when we compare our income or wealth status in the United States to others? And why does this matter? What does it matter when we say that we are one of the richest countries in the world compared to others? Does that make us responsible for ourselves and also responsible for the country? Or does this mean that we should keep a hands-off approach? Which side are you on? In our culture, we think that we could be anything we want to be if we just work hard enough. We can start from the bottom and climb to the top. This is about social mobility. Social mobility is the movement between different positions within a system of social stratification in any given society. It can be either horizontal or vertical and can take place on an individual or group level. Horizontal social mobility refers to the changing of jobs within a class. Horizontal social mobility, which is fairly common, refers to the changing of jobs within a class. For example, a therapist who shifts careers to teach college experiences horizontal mobility. Vertical social mobility is movement up or down the social ladder, and this is often called upward or downward mobility. If this same therapist marries a president of a large corporation, he or she might experience upward mobility. On the other hand, if the therapist or his or her spouse gets laid off, the therapist might experience downward mobility. People are far more likely to experience horizontal than vertical social mobility. However, most Americans strive for upward, a type of vertical social mobility. Please watch the video Is American Dreaming? It will illustrate the opportunities for upward and downward social mobility. Other types of mobility include structural mobility and exchange mobility. Structural mobility is mobility that is inevitable from changes in the economy, such as expansion of high-tech jobs in the past 20 years. Exchange mobility occurs when people essentially trade positions or change jobs. The number of overall jobs stays the same, with some people moving up into better jobs and others moving down into worse ones. Please watch the video, Wealth and Inequality in America. Many of us in this class probably don't come from the elite class. Many of us are probably working class or middle class individuals. We have been socialized to think that getting a college education will open up opportunities to have upward social mobility. Let's watch this video from Michael who discusses his research on social inequality and describes why the number of college graduates has stalled since 1970s. Michael Hoot writes about higher education and social mobility. From the 1930s to the 1970s, states supported higher education through public colleges. In the last 30 years, the states made higher education a lower priority for spending. At the same time, the economic returns to education have increased. Many students now have to borrow money to get a degree. Does it make sense to borrow money to get a college degree? How can higher education increase social mobility? Are you making a high risk by borrowing money for social mobility? Now we're going to focus on taxes, and one particular type of tax is the estate tax. The estate tax in the United States is related to the issue of stratification because it goes to the heart of the questions about how to promote business growth, how wealth should be distributed, and to encourage meritocracy and how to build a more equitable society. Those who pay the estate tax are not average day folks. It's the top 0.2%. So look at this illustration here. It states, I worked hard for 9 whole months to be born into an ultra-rich family, and now my inheritance is subject to a tax. So again, people have this idea that the wealthy work very hard, and maybe some do, but most of them are born into the wealthy positions. They inherit their wealth, and now they're trying to protect it from being taxed. These taxes can help with social policies, with infrastructure in our society to help us all out. But again, this is the very, very, very top percentage of society who would have to pay an estate tax. So what are some solutions to this? Instead of focusing on race-based or ethnic-based affirmative action, some policymakers and sociologists have suggested a class-based affirmative action. Race-based affirmative action has resulted in much more diverse group of college graduates, but one criticism of these policies is that they often end up helping those racial minorities who need it the least, those who are already privileged by class. Class now matters more than race in predicting educational opportunities and success. As race-based affirmative action loses social and legal support, many theorists have suggested class-based affirmative action as a solution. I would like for you to reflect more about this slide. Does inequality still exist in the United States today? Probably yes, most definitely. But I want you to think about how is it changing? Who is experiencing the inequality? Where is it at? What kinds of jobs do we have to help eradicate inequality, if there is such a thing? Think about solutions. How can we eradicate income and wealth inequality? How can we eliminate global income and wealth disparities? What state policies or laws would you put in order? What local programs would you put in order to help people in your communities overcome inequality? And be creative. Pretend that no one's going to say no to you. For this last video, go to your videos for this book, and you'll see the last one called Sociology on the Street for Chapter 7. Someone you would consider rich may not think of themselves that way. If the label rich is relative, What does it mean to be rich? So again, some people may think, oh yeah, I'm comfortable but not rich. Someone may look at them in terms of a relative perspective by their own position, say, oh no, you're rich compared to me. And so we have this idea of keeping up the Joneses. These people are better off. These people are less better off. But what really matters in all of this is a living wage. And livable wages vary by region. What does $15 per hour really mean in Savannah compared to San Francisco, compared to New York City, compared to places in South Dakota? This dollar amount for a livable wage is relative as well. So I want you to think about it. What does rich mean? What does working class mean? What does middle class mean? And what does it mean if we don't have the same definitions or we don't speak the same ways about language concerning wealth or income? Can we really fix the problem if we don't know what we're talking about collectively?